Hi guys, Maikeru here. This is my video on the new huge magic spells. These are super exciting and they definitely buff magic a decent amount, and there is a spell that buffs all styles as well. These 4 new spells came from the City of Senntisten quest that came out today. This quest is super fun, by the way, and it was really amazing to do that quest. These 4 new spells are in the Ancient Magic spellbook. I'm going to briefly talk about each one now, and then we're going to get into showcasing them and talking about, their effectiveness, etc. The first spell, a spell that buffs every single style, is the Smoke Cloud spell that requires 74 magic. What this does is it increases the target's damage received from critical strikes by 15%, and increases the damage cap against that target when landing a critical strike by 12%, and it lasts for 2 minutes. It also stacks with Grimoire and Voln and everything, so it's really strong. So this means the crit damage cap without a Grimoire has been increased to 13.2k if this debuff is on the target. With Grimoire, it's now increased to 16.8k if this debuff is on the target. So instead of hitting 15k back bolts with Grimoire now, you can hit 16.8k with your Ruby bolts. But obviously, a Grimoire is very expensive to use, so even your Ruby back bolts hitting 13.2k is really nice. This spell in general is just super strong because all of your crits are going to deal more damage regardless whether they hit the damage cap or not. This increases your damage considerably, and you can use Ingenuity of the Humans to make it hit with other styles. It doesn't have 100% accuracy, so it's like the old Voln, where people would Ingenuity of the Humans to get 100% hit chance on Voln. You will now do that with this spell every 2 minutes. But even at the mid and lower tier PVM levels, it would still be 100% worth using this spell if you're using magic, because then it will have a super high hit chance, so you won't need to spend, 190 mil on Ingenuity of the Humans, or whatever it is right now. It's very expensive. Moving on. Next up is the worst of the 4 spells. I don't really see myself using this. It might have a couple of niche uses, but I doubt it's going to be used much, because it's with tank armor. It's got a 12-minute duration, and for every piece of magic tank equipment that you're wearing, when you have this buff active, you gain 10% of its armor value as flat damage reduction. You gain 33% of your defense level as flat damage reduction, and it cannot be reduced more than 75% due to this effect. So if you're wearing loads and loads of tank gear and you use this, you can, reduce your damage taken by up to 75%. That sounds decent, but because you have to wear tank armor for its effect to stay active, it's not great. If you use this spell while wearing tank armor, then swap to non-tank armor, the spell then changes and you lose that extra, armor that you would have had with the tank armor. So you can't just take a tank armor swap to make this spell OP, you have to actually camp the tank armor, which makes it not too great. The next spell is Exanguinate. It's a fire spell at 96 magic. This spell is actually really awesome. Whenever you cast an ability with this spell, you gain a stack of Blood Tithe up to a max of 12 stacks for 20 seconds. Every time you apply a new stack, it refreshes the 20-second timer. Although I will note, whenever you use abilities with this spell, it costs the runes for the spell every ability, not just for auto attacks. So while building up these stacks, you're going to be using 3 blood runes, 1 death rune, and 5 fire runes every cast, so it gets expensive. Although it's worth the cost, just like how you would use back criminal bolts to range and it can be quite expensive, this is really, really strong. Each stack of Blood Tithe increases your basic ability damage by 1%. So this goes up to a maximum of 12% increased damage on your basic abilities. And at 12 stacks, your rack ability becomes Rack and Ruin. You can see on screen where Rack and Ruin is now. This is 60 to 300% ability damage, which is close to wild magic. And if the target is bound or stunned, it's 120 to 360% ability damage, which is pretty much the same as wild magic, which is pretty huge. It also then extends the duration of your next combust spell by 2 hits, as long as you use it within 10 seconds of casting Rack and Ruin. And then it consumes all of your Blood Tithe stacks and goes back to normal rack when you use it. So pretty much what you do is obviously get your 12 stacks, use Rack and Ruin, go back to having no stacks, build your stacks up again, and use it again. You keep doing it over and over again, dealing that really big damage with Rack and Ruin and increasing your combust a little bit. Super, super amazing, and it can also be paired with the other spell I'm going to show, so you can use both of them for, like, insane damage. I'll talk more about that when I'm showcasing using the spells, so let's see what the next one does. This one is called Insight Fear, and it has the highest level requirement at 98 magic. On ability cast, again, you gain a stack of Glacial Embrace to a maximum of 5 stacks for 20 seconds. And again, whenever you use an ability, it renews that 20-second timer. Although this time, you're not using the runes every time you're building up the stacks, you're using it when it triggers Frost Surge. At 5 stacks, the next ability you cast triggers that Frost Surge. This deals 10 to 50% ability damage to the primary target and up to 8 adjacent targets in a 5x5 area around your target. So as you can see in this screenshot here, that 5x5 area is huge. So you can AoE a ton of things at the same time every 12 seconds. And it will only cost runes when this effect procs, not when you're just building up the stacks. Not only does it do all of this, it reduces the adrenaline cost of Tsunami by 12% per stack. Which means at 5 stacks, your Tsunami costs 60% adren. You can use a Ring of Vigor to keep 10%. If it crits, you get even more adren back. And your Tsunami can literally cost 18% adren. Absolutely nuts. But like I said, you can use these two abilities in tangent with one another. Using one doesn't get rid of the debuff of the other one. So as you can see in this clip, I'm swapping between the two spells to keep both of the buffs up all the time. Obviously, this is getting to the more sweaty level of PVM or whatever, but this shows that the damage potential of these is really high. Because you're always going to have that reduction to your Tsunami cost, which makes Tsunami a viable thing to use in any rotation. All you got to do is every 12 seconds, switch to Insight Fear, have it proc the AoE, and then go back to camping Exanguinate to build up your stacks from your basics and use your Rack and Ruin. So you're mostly camping Exanguinate, and you just swap to the Insight Fear to proc that AoE, proc that damage, and keep your 5 stacks so your Tsunami's cheaper, etc. So yes, this is kind of a sweaty method, but you can think about the damage potential and it would be super high. I feel like this is like really, really good for the high level PVM and closes that gap between magic, range, and melee a bit more. I'm not saying magic is going to be stronger than range now, but it's closer. It's getting much better and it's had a buff. And the damage potential from stuff like Rack and Ruin, if you look here, I had every buff going and I managed to hit a 23.4k. Obviously, on bosses, this is capped at that 16.8k if you're using a Grimoire, so you're never going to deal more than 16.8k to a boss. But when the new ability, the Rack and Ruin, can hit this hard, you're going to be hitting damage cap with this ability a decent amount. And that means there's a lot of damage to be had with magic. Alongside switching up the rotation a little bit, Tsunami being in your main rotation is going to generate you more adren to dump on more G-Staffs, etc. Having more damage with your basic attacks from stacking up your Exanguinate is going to be huge, and you're just going to be able to deal a lot of damage overall. Not to mention Smoke Cloud being great for mage users, because you don't even have to use Ingenuity, and you can save your Ingenuity for something like a Seren Godbow. Although with Smoke Cloud being super strong to your critical attacks, I wanted to see if I could get a new PB at Vindicta with melee using Ingenuity to use Smoke Cloud. I did a decent amount of attempts for this. I had to get used to how to use it. And I managed to get a PB at Vindicta. My PB was 20 seconds. And I managed to get a 19-second right here by using the new ability, increasing the crit damage that I was doing and the damage output that I had. And it was really, really awesome to do. So I think this new ability will help get some more quicker and consistent kill times at certain places. And then the magic buffs of the actual magic spells can be really, really awesome too. And lastly, the last thing I want to talk about is your Pontifex Observation Ring got a tiny buff in this update with this new quest as well. So it used to give tier 1 luck, 1% divination, increased spawn rate of chronicle fragments, rock opportunities, and the time sprite would move less often. And now you can upgrade it to a Pontifex Shadow Ring that gives it tier 2 luck instead of tier 1 and gives it a teleport to the Senntisten Cathedral. Not the biggest upgrade to this ring, but they said it's going to continuously get upgrades, so just a little bit added to that. And that is it for this video. Do give it a like if you did enjoy. Subscribe if you're new for loads of future content all related to RuneScape 3. I'm super excited to try out Magic a bit more with all of these cool buffs. And as always, until next time, see ya.